and listeners and viewers and my audience, my guests on this week in interview today, Wednesday, July 26, 2023. It's a pleasure, as always, to be with you at this time, spending about an hour. Sometimes we go to an hour and a half, and I suspect tonight might be one of those days we will go to an hour and a half because I have this wonderful conversation on tap. My guest tonight on this week in interview is Mr. Loftus Duran. I'm sure most of you know who Mr. Loftus Duran is. And so tonight we gather, we'll be right back. Grab your drink, grab your notepad, share the live, and sit down for a very, exciting conversation. Serious and solemn, but exciting conversation tonight with my guest, Mr. Loftus Duran. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, here we are. Another episode of This Week in Interview on TDN Radio, TDN TV. Welcome, folks, and to my regular listeners, a very warm welcome to you. As usual, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. You know that I really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with me and with all of us as our community on This Week in Interview, and I appreciate that very much. If tonight is the first time that you're listening to This Week in Interview, or you haven't been with us for a little while, welcome to you. Very, very special welcome to you. I hope you find us sufficiently interesting that you will join us as well every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Because on This Week in Interview, our objective is to bring you contemporary topics, contemporary happenings, but we do it from a different perspective. We try to go at an angle that regular social media may miss, on our news, and journalists may not quite get to that nuanced area in some of those issues. Those of you in Dominica who are listening to us on DigiPlay Channel 59, RVR Jams Online Radio carries This Week in Interview live, so you can view us on DigiPlay Channel 59. Also in the Canada, Toronto area, there is Radio SBE Online that carries This Week in Interview live. But no matter where you are, welcome. Share the link. And if you listen to us on Facebook or on YouTube or any one of those social media, I want you to like us. I want you to subscribe, follow us, and of course, leave a comment. But most importantly, I'd like you to share the link so that somebody can join this conversation, because I think the information that we have, that we share, the information that my guests bring to you, are such valuable information that the more people who know of what we talk about is the more beneficial it will be, and the more likely that we will succeed in getting a movement on the way, because our objective is to get you to move. You learn, first of all, you think about it in a different way, and then you take some action. And the more people that we have taking action based on information and knowledge is the more effective, whatever objective that we go after. So tonight on This Week in Interview, my guest is Mr. Loftus Duran. And let me tell you about Loftus. Loftus came into my orbit, my attention, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before, not the last election in Dominica, the election before the election in 2019. I think it was when Loftus seemed to be the only voice in the wilderness in Dominica, really just agitating for electoral reform and just highlighting all of the atrocities that were happening in Dominica with the Roosevelt Skerrit administration. And at that time, the United Workers' Party seemed to be out of step, out of bounds, a little bit discombobulated. Freedom Party, of course, was still in a slumber. And Loftus was part of CCM at the time, Concerned Citizens Movement, and you would hear his voice. He and this photographer called Oswald, I think it was, were the two people you were hearing most about and hearing from. They would walk and they would see and they would turn on their camera and bring it to us. And you just admired the courage that he displayed, because at that time the government had a really heavy hand on any kind of dissent. You see, the police was really brutalizing guys. And, that was pre Munsewi, and he kept it alive and kept it going until, like, the Workers' Party got some traction. They made some visits in the diaspora to Houston, to New York, to Canada, and they got some traction. They came back on, and that energy was there. But Loftus, in my opinion anyway, was the one who kept that ember burning. So there was something to start a flame. And so he's somebody that I admired from way back then. When Concerned Citizen Movement would be doing stuff, we would rally and raise a little bit of funds to send a little contribution to get some refreshments while guys were out demonstrating and that sort of thing. So that's how I got to know this man. And the more I know him, the more I admire him. He's moved on, I guess, from CCM, and he now has an organization called Civic Vibes. And he described himself as a human rights activist. And every week, 2 or 3 times a week, Loftus is still on and still keeping the pressure. And I like to think that he, for a long time there, he is the one who is keeping the government from having smooth sailing towards where they want to take Dominica into a dictatorship. He's the one who is preventing them from having a ship on smooth waters. And so I say Loftus is the one who is rocking the boat. He has been rocking the boat of the Skerrit-led administration and really bringing a lot of stuff to attention of the public. And so tonight, before as my introductory song for Loftus, I want to play Rock the Boat, because I think he's been rocking Skerrit's boat for quite a few years now, and I want to encourage him to stop. So let's play that song a little bit of it, a snippet, so I can introduce Mr. Loftus Duran to the audience. I just wanted to start on that light note. The light note, because we're going to have a serious conversation. But Loftus, seriously, I really admire the way that you have stuck with it, you've persevered, and constantly identifying the wrong direction that the government in Dominica has been taking, and shedding light on it and bringing it to the attention of people. I remember when they tried to pass the Treating and Bribing Act, you're one of the key people in there who brought it to people's attention and rallied people to come out and show the dissatisfaction and to squash that. So, Loftus, it's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome. You've been on before, so welcome back to this weekend interview. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because there's so much going on right now. Welcome, my brother.
All right. Well, Brother Drago, a special good evening to you, my bro, to you and your many listeners and viewers as well on your medium. It's a pleasure to have me on tonight with you to have a very candid conversation about Dominica, our country.
Yes, Loftus. And as I said, and I'll repeat it, thank you for all you do. I introduce you tonight as a human rights activist and the founder of Civic Vibes, and most importantly, the I don't know who that spins the storm, but the storm that's keeping the government from having smooth sailing and taking Dominica into a dictatorship. That ship, you keeping it rocking so that it doesn't get to its destination. Like our Calypso King says, is a dictatorship, and that dictatorship is just a lot of heartache, unemployment, brutalization, abuse of our laws, and all of those things that I'm looking forward to us, just really sitting down seriously and unpacking them and to really show what is going on in Dominica, where it's tending towards, and also at the end, what is it that we can do? What is it you are doing? What is it I can do? What is it every one single person in the audience tonight? What is it that they can do? So, very warm welcome to that. Well, Loftus, before we go on, though, there is some solemn business that we'd like to take care of. Because this week, you and I lost a mutual friend, a fellow media person. But she, unlike me, who is picking up this um, radio and online business, she was actually a trained journalist, a professional, Miss Beverly Sinclair. She's been on, I guess, on This Week in Interview a couple of times in the past. And, the whole journalism thing was struck a serious blow this week because our dear friend, Miss Beverly Sinclair, passed away. Lofty, I know you were a friend and a colleague of hers, so I'm going to give you a few moments to just talk about Beverly a little bit.
All right. Well, again, thanks for the opportunity, Brother Drago, to be on here with you tonight. Yes, Beverly Sinclair will be a name that will be etched in my memory for a very, very long time to come. Beverly Sinclair is originally from Jamaica, but she lived and worked in Grenada. A no nonsense woman, a no nonsense journalist at that. She basically epitomizes what I believe that a lot of journalists in our region today could aspire to be in terms of being true to the profession of journalism. She did a lot of research so that anything that Beverly brought to the fore, especially in the public domain, then as I normally say, you could basically take that to the bank and get cash because she really did the necessary digging, the necessary search, so that whatever she brought to the public would have been the facts of the matter. And that to me is really a high point or the high bar that any journalist with his or her salt supposed to be doing in the times that we live in. She was very ethical. She basically, you could take her word for it. There was no hanky-panky business, for want of a better term, happening with Beverly or where she's concerned. She was very erudite. She basically spoke her truth. She was very gentle, but amidst that gentleness, you could sense or feel that toughness. So she was no pushover. A matter of fact, I had a discussion with a journalist in Grenada, I believe today's Wednesday and Sunday. Brother Bob. In that interview, I learned a bit more about Beverly in that she basically took on the powers that be, no matter who they were. Beverly basically was a social activist, journalism, in the field of journalism. She played a critical role in standing up for rights of others. Brother Bob read a letter that she penned some time back, and you'd want to think that is not any journalist that would, go that deep and bring or put words to their feelings as it pertains to a public figure then in Grenada where certain human rights were concerned. But Beverly did what she had to do, and so for sure her voice will be missed in the region. Her voice will be missed on the radio, on the TV program, that she hosted. We also of late she was hosting with us a program called Make We Chat. That is every Thursdays from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the night, where she, Beverly, myself, and other journalists in the region or like-minded persons would come on and just bring things that are affecting one way or the other us in the region together to the fore. She was very good at that. A matter of fact, when we did not have the strength to continue, she basically pulled us together and said, "Guys, we have to do it. We have to do it. The people need us." And so we sort of fell in line. And so to the many colleagues now of hers who participated in that program, all of us, we are surely mourning the loss of a very dear daughter, a very dear friend. So to her daughter and her and extended family now, we sincerely extend our condolences. But the work that she did, Brother Drago, trust me, that work will live on for a very long time. And it is up to us now to measure up, as it were, to that very high mark or that high bar that she left. She left a void, and it is up to us to fill that void.
Yeah, certainly, Loftus. I echo all of the sentiments that you expressed. Beverly, of course, was a guest of mine on This Week in Interview a few times with her very good friend and colleague, Jerry George. They would come on and they would just, have that energy and that information about what's happening. They had their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the region and put it in an international context and still be able to narrow it down and put it in the context of which particular island that we were discussing. Um, Certainly, I believe that the Caribbean would be a different place if we had one or two journalists like Beverly in each country. If there was a Beverly in Dominica, we would see a lot more agitation of some of what we can describe as nonsense that happens in Dominica and Antigua and all of those places. And those politicians who snap at journalists, um, when they ask them a question that makes them uncomfortable, they would see this gentle lady standing in front of them and they would snap at her and she would snap back, not in a disrespectful or unprofessional way, but she would certainly stand her ground and snap back. And so, in recognition of the transition of Beverly out of our physical plane, I would challenge the journalists in Dominica, in Antigua, in St. Vincent, in Grenada, and all the other islands. I would challenge you to go online and find some of Beverly's work and use that as a beacon to gauge yourself and have a serious conversation with yourself and ask yourself, how do I measure up as a journalist? When I look at the body of work and the style and the courage of this woman called Beverly Sinclair. That's the challenge I put out there. There's a few journalists in Dominica that I'd like to meet in person and tell them that in person, but I think they know themselves. Look at what Beverly did and look at how you cower every time you stand up in front of the political leader and how you're afraid to ask questions, and how when he snaps at you, you withdraw back into your shell, afraid, and ask yourself, are you doing your people a service? As a journalist, especially for the folks who do journalism as a full-time career and profession, I place that challenge on the table for them. That in the passing of this stalwart woman, examine yourself and have a candid conversation with yourself and see how you can do better as a journalist, because the Caribbean is moving in a direction that's not favorable. And one of the functions of journalism is to recognize it, bring it to people's attention, and do it in a way that makes the folks uncomfortable. And we're not seeing that in the islands enough. That is my contribution to say I wish Beverly, to rest in peace, and sincere condolences to her daughter and the rest of her family, and of course the fellow journalists and colleagues who have a hole in their heart right now because they miss her voice and her wisdom and her guidance. May she rest in peace. All right. So Lofty, let's come to the conversation that we're going to have. And when I asked you what title you wanted me to give on my introduction for you tonight, you said human rights activist. what do you mean when you call yourself a human rights activist? How do you see that yourself? Mm.
All right. Well, Drago, human rights activist basically speaks for itself in that wherever rights are being trampled upon by whomever, be it an individual or even a government, then there must rise certain individuals to help curb the scourge of one's rights being trampled upon. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone related to you by blood or through community or through nationality, but wherever it shows up its head, then that person normally takes it upon his or herself to one, speak against that kind of injustice, and more so be prepared to do, because it is one thing to speak or to talk about a situation, but it is a totally different kettle of fish, as it were, to be prepared to do something about injustice. And I think that is where the world now is lacking, in that human beings are very, very quick to point out the flaws, to point out what needs to be happening, to point out what is wrong. But as to they taking a positive stance against what they're talking about, then that is where some persons fall short. And so is in that vein that I choose to step up to the plate, as it were, knowing that there is a lack, there is a void in that department. I normally listen to, I normally read, I normally watch documentaries of a lot of leaders, past leaders, that is, even current leaders as well, who champion the cause for others. We're talking about, like, in the 60s, 70s, the Malcolm X's, the Martin Luther Kings, the Mahatma Gandhis. These are the people that sort of saturate my mind when I have the time to do so, because out of them, out of their actions, the Marcus Garveys and these brothers who stood up in the face of whatever was coming their way and decided that, hey, I will stand with my people. I will stand against that injustice. And so that is what the world needs more of, is persons really and truly be prepared to stand against tyranny, stand against the status quo, as it were. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that we are living today, but not just for ourselves. There should be a
We
mark that
should be living today, not just for ourselves.
we should
That
be
that
living.
I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that I
That's
think is
that.
key, Lofty, because what I hear you say is that not everybody can stand up for themselves for one reason or
No,
another.
not at all.
You,
Not at all.
your livelihood might be taken away from you if you stand up for yourself. The
Mhm.
livelihood, but even more importantly, the livelihood of your another family member might be. So, whatever reason, some people are not able to stand for themselves. And when you talk about rights, folks, I take it right back to the Constitution, because almost every, I guess, every country has some kind of constitution, and it always starts with, as human beings, we have certain rights to freedom, rights to ownership of property, right to pursuit of happiness, rights to freedom of assembly, rights, a whole lot of rights. And so, folks, when we talk about human rights, it's not some abstract concept. Most of our laws based on the protection of those rights as enshrined in our constitution. And so when you say you are a human rights activist, what I hear from you is that there are a number of folks who may be voiceless for whatever reason, and you see it as a noble cause to 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 point out and to take action to try to lessen that injustice that's happening to a fellow human being. So let's zoom all the way back to Dominica. And as a human rights activist, let's start with one, your biggest concern about human rights in Dominica? Or how you say, the trampling, the curtailing, the abuse of human rights in Dominica? What would be your number one issue that you see that needs attention and action?
All right. Well, as you said, there are a number of situations in Dominica that really draws to anyone's attention as it pertains to the protection of rights. With rights as well, I must admit, comes responsibility or responsibilities. So those two go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
In Dominica, as we speak, Drago, we have been witnessing the slowly but surely sort of diminishing of rights, one rights in Dominica, especially where the government is concerned. And I'll be straight to the point. For example, your right to freedom of association, your right to freedom of speech, your right to associate with whoever you want to in Dominica. We are seeing that sort of subtle undermining of these rights where the government of the day is concerned. Because in the former years of the Dominica that a lot of people knew before, these rights were more expressed, these rights were more these rights were much more prevalent to express in the ways that they wanted. Obviously, when you're expressing your rights, you have to take into consideration the rights of other people as well. But there has been this slow but surely decay of these rights, and it stems back to the type of governance that we have had for a number of years in Dominica. And I will put no water in my wine, as it were, and I will say, since the introduction of Roosevelt Skerrit in Dominica as prime minister, we have been seeing that sort of wannabe dictatorship, tyranny creeping into what we once knew as a democracy. And those two cannot mesh. It's either one or the other. But for some time, Brother Drago, a lot of persons in Dominica, they cannot speak. They cannot speak because if they speak exactly what is on their mind, especially as it pertains to their living conditions, the healthcare, the education, the just name it. These people are victimized, they are cast aside, they are ostracized, and it is just a sad state in which we are living. So that is why I chose with other persons to rise to the occasion and say, hey, we have been living in a democracy where these rights were or are being enjoyed, and so shall it be. So shall it be. And obviously, that doesn't go down well with the powers that be. And so the attacks have come, they are still coming. But at the end of the day, the men who are in power today, it is said in any democratic country or in a democratic system that the people who are in that system is much stronger than the people in power.
The power of the people is stronger than the people in power. So what are your what is your biggest concern about what is happening in Dominica? What if we had to focus our resources on one or two issues, where do you think we should focus our issues to have the biggest impact on improving the respect for human rights in Dominica?
Drago, you touched on a situation earlier on, and I'll just elaborate on it just a bit before I get to that main question that you asked. In 2017, May of 2017, that date, that it is etched in my memory, in that it was the very first time that I really opened up my eyes to understand, opened up my mind to understand what really a country we are in, what really is the government of the day that we have that wants to basically put us in a situation that would have us in the country under their feet. In May of 2017, here it is. The Dominican Labour Party, headed by Roosevelt Skerrit and his bunch of ministers, aided and abetted with Alex Boyd Knight as being the Speaker of the House. The government, through the AG, came up and decided they're going to make into law treating and bribery. And when I say treating and bribery, let me just break it down so that the persons listening and viewing can understand what I'm talking about. Treating, basically, in our electoral context, means giving certain persons things to induce them to vote or not to vote. So you can either induce them to vote for you or not to vote for another person or another party. Bribery,
right,
alongside that, is basically on the same trajectory. Giving of stuff, but it has an intent, an whole motive at the back of it to sort of dissuade somebody real intent as to who they want to cast a vote for during election time. Now,
right.
that these
can be
practices,
implied.
these practices,
without cutting you, some people might say, well, never tell me to vote for them, but that can be explicit or it can be implied. I just want
yes,
to
it is. Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And these practices have been illegal activities on our books from since, timely memorial.
We became a country. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so any government that went down that road, they would have been held accountable for that. Here it is in May of 2017. This present day government headed by Roosevelt Skerrit went into our parliament, the highest making law body of our land, and wanted to do away with that and make that legal, or make these two situations legal. And so from that day, Brother Drago, I realized that I am living in a country that is no longer safe to live if these people would have their way. And that is why I led the charge outside Parliament with other persons. I sounded the alarm that, hey, that is what is going to happen, and we need to stand against that with all our might. And it was we standing outside and saying in very clear, unambiguous tones and terms that will not happen. It is the only reason why today bribery and treating is not legal.
It's not part of law. And that is an example of the power of the people being stronger than people in power. That was a perfect example. And that's why I brought that up when I introduced you and I played the song Rock the Boat. There was a time there, Loftus, where the citizen movement under your leadership was the only turbulence that the dictatorship was facing.
Drago, for some reason, your audio is going and coming. I don't know if something can be done.
Okay, I am not sure. Let me see if this will work better.
I'm hearing you, but I have to piece it together.
Yeah. So I was saying, can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better, yes.
So I was saying that is why I played the song when I introduced you, Rock the Boat. Because for a long time there, the Concerned Citizens Movement under your leadership was the only turbulence that dictatorship was facing. Otherwise, they would sail smoothly into passing the law legalizing treating and bribing, they would, and so many other laws that they tried to pass, and people were mobilized to speak against it. And that is an example of where the power in the people is stronger than the people in power. Love that it's 6:46. We're pushing up against hard against my commercial break. Let's take that break. When we come back, I want us to spend some time talking about your long-standing cry for electoral reform. If anybody
Okay.
knows, they know that Loftus calls for electoral reform. And I want you to unpack for us the most important aspects, in your opinion, that any kind of electoral reform, at a minimum, should address. All right. So, folks, let's
No
take a
problem.
quick break. And when we come back, we'll rejoin my guest, Mr. Loftus Durant, on this special episode of This Week in Interview, where we're talking about issues that the Dominicans are facing as it pertains to their rights as citizens, their right to exercise a vote that is free and fair, and to choose how they govern. Are they given that opportunity? Do you feel, as a Dominican, that you are given the opportunity to exercise freely and fairly your choice of who your leader should be? We take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Presented by. People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
If you live in Canada, the US, and the UK and are looking for Dominica products including cocoa sticks, bay rum, coffee, soaps, crafts, and other popular Dominica items, then look no further. You can now shop on BuyDominicaOnline.com, a secure, easy-to-navigate website selling a wide variety of Dominica-made and Dominica-inspired products. When you shop on BuyDominicaOnline.com, you are helping to grow Dominica's economy. Go to BuyDominicaOnline.com and enjoy home away from home. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com. or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Through the break, I tried to fix some of the technical issues that we're having. I got a note saying that my video seemed to be freezing quite a bit, so let me know if it's doing better right now. Hopefully that problem is solved. But my guest tonight on This Week in Interview is Mr. Loftus Durant. He's the founder of Civic Vibes, and he's a human rights activist who is very active on the scene in Dominica, highlighting the issues that are faced by the public by a government who, according to his description, it seems to be bent on visions of a dictatorship, of taking away the opportunity for every Dominican to feel as though they have the opportunity and the privilege to exercise a free and fair vote in selecting who governs the country, who gets to decide how the resources of the country is distributed, and what development objectives that they pursue that would benefit most people. So, Loftus, I want to talk about electoral reform. I imagine that's one of the areas we want to spend a little bit of time on, because that is an issue that has been really at the forefront of discussion in Dominica for over 10 years, maybe 15 years. This government has been in power for 23 years, and probably since after the first term. So maybe more than 15 years, people have been clamoring for reform that would modernize the electoral system, but most importantly, even at a minimum, that would respect the laws that we have on the books right now already, and then whatever changes we need to make to even improve further the process by which we elect the leaders of our country. So Loftus, in terms of electoral reform, and you are the leading voice in Dominica, no doubt, for advocating for electoral reform. What are some of the conditions that, at a minimum, any kind of electoral reform in Dominica right now should be included?
Brother Drago, just before I go there, there's a question that someone posed on the live feed. When we were on the discussion reprotest action in Dominica, and I'd really like some time to answer that question in earnesty from Maslin Edwards. She asked, where did the people's power go? Why there can't be the same level of protest action?
Right.
So if you permit me, I want to answer that, then we can come into the electoral matters.
We like to interact with the audience and answer their questions.
Yes. Okay. Basically, I do acknowledge that we are not where we used to be in terms of protest action in Dominica before. And that is mainly due to, based on where I am concerned, to the best of my knowledge, there has been a void in terms of effective leadership, steering that ship as it pertains to guiding, inspiring, and mobilization of the people. End of story. There have been a number of setbacks that came in the way as it pertains to the continuation of that action. I, for one, I am telling you, it's not a matter of blowing my trumpet or blowing my whistle, but it is a situation whereby sometimes you have to sort of step back, do some self-introspection, and let others sort of, lead the charge, as it were. Because leadership sometimes, when you're in that position, it can be a very lonely place to be. And a lot of times leaders go under tremendous pressure or placed under tremendous pressure because of the people that they are leading. And these people sometimes don't have a clue as to the pressure that leader goes through. So that has been my fate by and large. And so that is why a lot of persons have not been seeing me, quote unquote, leading those charges again, because I went through a number of situations where, allegations, accusations, persons didn't like this, person didn't like that. Obviously, with that comes the territory. I understand that. But sometimes you just have to, sort of take two steps back and let other persons get a taste of what you have been going through and just see if they can come up to scratch. So I think that is where Dominica is at now.
So you're saying that within the movement itself, there was a lot of friction that seemed to have discouraged the people who were trying to lead the movement.
Yes, I'm saying that outrightly, yes.
Okay. So not only you have to fight the fight that you're trying to fight, you have a struggle keeping your troops organized and moving in one direction.
Yes, just like our deceased Prime Minister said, that is Pierre Charles, God bless his memory, in that it is one thing to fight the enemy outside, but it is one thing to fight the persons who are within your camp to keep everything together. That is a totally different fight, and some persons are not prepared for that fight. And so in that vein, I've not given up, but I just decided to give it a break, as it were.
And so since you stopped organizing the protest movement, nobody has really stepped into organizing on a regular basis, and that's why we see less protest movement.
Well, there have been attempts to organize, but at the end of the day, organizing a protest action in Dominica context, it is not something you can just get up one night and decide to go to a protest line or go to a picketing line next morning. No, a lot of study has to go into that, a lot of logistics, a lot of planning, a lot. It takes a lot to keep a people together. As a matter of fact, right about now on my table there, I have some books whereby at least 300-400 names of persons and contact numbers that are there. So that at any one point in time, yours truly could just call, say, we are meeting there, we're meeting there, let us do that, in sort of covert action. But the way it is now, everything is just sort of, everybody pulling here, and there doesn't seem to be that sort of gelling of the forces together. And, we are just like a ship without a rudder now. Sad to say, but trust me, any effective leader, Drygo, that would be in Dominica's situation now, where Dominica is at with the type of malgovernance, this type of stuff that this government is getting away with. Any leader with their salt would sort of put it together and rally the troops and say, okay, let us deal with our business once and for all. That has not been happening, and I really don't know if it will happen unless there's a total kenosis, as it were, a total change from inside out.
That, that shifting the conversation to somewhere that I am very interested in, because I always say, Loftus, everything rises and falls on leadership. And not only on leadership in the government in power, but in leadership in the opposition forces who are supposed to be offering an alternative to the people and an inspiration to the people to fight and think that there is a chance that we're going to be triumphant. So if you take a risk, at least there's a calculated risk that your victory is possible. But without leadership in that movement, it's very difficult for folks to keep motivated and keep inspired. So I hear you loud and clear. There is certainly a vacuum.
And Mark you Drygo, I'm not saying there's not leadership. There is leadership, but I want us to qualify that leadership by saying there's not effective leadership. That is the missing key. That is the missing cog in that wheel.
Well, Nelson Mandela said, if you're leading and people not following, you're going for a stroll.
I like that.
So it might be leadership, but if it's not effective, it has the same effect as no leadership. But Loftus, I want to pivot back to the electoral reform. Okay, let us talk about some of the main aspects that we would like to see in electoral reform.
Drygo, electoral reform in Dominica have been on the people's mind for a number of years now, at least if memory serves me right, 15 plus years. That is 3 electoral cycles, whereby all we need in Dominica is to make our elections, our general elections at that, more free, more fair, and more transparent. And the Dominican people, by and large, have been wanting that process to be completed sometime back. But for some reason, we just cannot get it together as a people for that to be done in the interest of fair play. And the only people that they are standing in the way of that coming to fruition is the Dominican Labour Party and their henchmen and their henchwomen. That is the point blank situation about it. If Dominica would realize that day and would have those legislations come into effect, then it would be a very bright day in Dominica. Obviously, the process, it's a process, so it would have to be an ongoing process of making sure that we're up to date. But in the region right now, we are the laughing stock, as it were, in the region where fair play, freeness, and transparency is concerned in our elections. And for one, I know I've been hearing a lot of persons talking about, what is needed to bring about a free and fair and transparent process. But in my mind, Drago, in my mind, being at that so long now, it is crystal clear in my mind, at least some things that we must have before any other general elections is called in Dominica for it to be considered to be free and fair. And I just note 7 things that we need. First and foremost, we have no way, Brother Drago, of properly identifying ourselves when we go to vote.
Okay.
No way. Dominica is small, yes, but with the advent of technology, anything can happen as to impersonating of other persons. So we can no longer rely on, I know Drago from Cassie Bruce, I know his brother. No. That cannot cut it again. So we need, as we speak, Drago, a voter's ID card. And that card, it speaks for itself. The name speaks for itself, whereby that card should be used only for voting purposes to protect our democracy. End of story.
So when you register,
we don't need no hanky-panky pussyfooting around a card to vote. So I heard some persons want to call it all other cards, but to me, let us stick to, let us ensure, let us demand that that identifier should be a voter's card. There will be specifics on there that will determine that card.
Right.
Is bona fide. We will not get into the details, but a voter's ID card is one of the imperatives as we are moving forward.
So in other words, a national ID card, everybody has a national ID card.
A national ID card, Drago, cannot cut it.
Whether you are a voter or not a voter, everybody is eligible for a national card.
In the Dominica context, Drago, I am saying a national ID card cannot cut it, because you just said it right. A national ID card, everybody, all and sundry, even the child that is in the womb still, is entitled to a card, a national ID card, not a voter's ID card.
Right.
And so again, that is trying to pull wool over the people's eye by the powers that be, by talking about the implementation of a national ID card. That is one way that they are now plotting to steal the elections in the future, is by bringing about that card.
Okay. What's the second must have?
The second must have in my mind is that we have a list. We call it the electors list. That is the sort of the blueprint as to who gets on there to vote in our elections in a bona fide manner. that list, Drago, it is as bloated as ever. And so on that list, last electoral cycle, the sham that we had in 2022, on that list, we had that list from the Elections Commission telling the Dominican people that pretty close to 70, how much was it? 76 or 74,000 persons were on that list and could cast a vote. And Drago, that is a mathematical madness, I call it.
Right.
We in Dominic, as we speak, our last census was all the way in 2011, and it was nowhere, the population was nowhere close to 74, 76,000. No. And with the advent of migration, Hurricane Maria, and the hard time that has befallen this country, persons have left, persons are living in droves. So presently, Drago, Dominica's population, in my mind, that's where I live, I breathe, I know what is happening in Dominica. It is no more than 70,000 people, no more.
I don't even think there's 70,000 people in Dominica.
Just for talking sake.
Yeah. Because
so when the Electoral Commission would bring about telling me in Dominica that the persons who are eligible to vote is 74,000 plus, man, there's not adjectives to describe the state of mind of these people.
Or the state of mind that they think we the citizens are, that they can present that to us as a list with a straight face.
Well, my mind is straight. And that is why I'm trying my best with some other persons to help ensure that the other Dominicans' mind are straight as well.
Right. So voter ID card, what do you want, a re-registration, a cleansing? What do we want to do with the list?
If we start in the process fresh, let us start fresh in honesty. So we're talking about a total re-registration.
Right.
We are talking about confirmation and no, a total re-registration. So let's start from scratch, because Drago, that process that we are getting into, it could either spell good for us as a country or it could spell doom for us as a country. And we have to make sure that we get it right from the get-go.
Okay. So voter ID, a re-registration of electors. Number 3.
If we start in fresh, Drago, there must be a fixed date for general elections.
Okay. No argument with me on that one. Yeah. I think it really is a disservice to the country for people to be guessing when there's election, because I think it's a major distraction. But if you know election is a certain day, you can go about your business taking care of developmental issues, and you know your election is going to be on the 3rd of November, 2024. You know, okay, you can plan your campaign and your preparation time. But when you're in a state of mind where one man can just call your election next month, there's always that distraction. That's my opinion. So I agree with you 100% on that one.
Number 4, Drago, in terms of an imperative for electoral reform, it is a fixed term as well for anyone sitting in the seat as prime minister. The talk that we have been hearing around, we have not been hearing much of that, but I want to plug that in there, because at the end of the day, how we have been doing things in this country, where the prime minister's chair is concerned, Roosevelt's carried has used that situation to his own benefit, seeing that there is no fixed and set term for any one person to be in that chair. Then that in and out of itself is a breeding ground for where we are today. That leads to tyranny. It leads to dictatorship. When somebody can feel that they are sitting in the chair and there is no set time for them to be removed from that chair, or move themselves from that chair and let another person take up that slack to lead this country, it is not spelling well for our country. And so again, if we are starting that process fresh, let us have a fixed term. I've been hearing 2 terms. That is okay because the great American or the democratic countries, they have that in place. But
So
in my mind, Drago, to be
Uh-huh.
reasonable, knowing where Dominica has been in terms of its development, knowing where we can be in terms of development, I gauge the term of office on the Eugenia Charles's government. Eugenia Charles stayed there for 3 terms, consecutively, that is. And to me, in my mind, she did a fairly good job to put Dominica on the map. And so I hear certain persons are clamoring about 2 terms. If it means that is the will of the people, that is fine. But I am prepared to say, okay, let us cut some slack and give a prime minister 3 terms. But after that, that's it. Nothing less, nothing more than 3 terms. 15 years. If you cannot get it right in 15 years, move
So
out so that somebody else can do what you cannot do.
I have a slight departure from your thinking. I think in an economy that's as small as Dominica, I think 10 years is more than enough time. I would do like what the Americans do and cut the term to 4 years and make it a maximum of 2 years. Because if somebody is failing after 8 years, they don't need to be there again longer than that. Our economy is so small, Loftus. We have 1 hospital. Maybe we should have 2. Okay? We have maybe 20 schools, less than 100 miles of road. What do you need 15 years to do? If you cannot set your program in 4 years and implement in the next 4 years, you need to go. And I think that one issue is the most important issue, because as long as somebody knows that there's a possibility for them to stay there forever, they're going to try to stay there forever. But if they know by law they're going to expire in that chair, then the incentive is to do well enough that you're going to leave a legacy behind, not try to stay in power for all that time. And so I agree term limits is most important, but I really, really think I would compromise and take 2 5-year terms, but I really think it should be 2 4-year terms, because our ship is just so small that it should be more nimble to turn it around and to see an effect. Because if you think about Miss Charles' 3 terms, her 3rd term was a little lackluster. She was robust for 10, and the last 5 was kind of so much so that United Workers' Party was able to come up right away and bowl her out, so to speak. All right, what is the next item? So we've done term limits, we've done fixed dates for election, we've done voter ID cards, we've done re-registration. What you said you had 7, so what is the next one on your list?
The amount of monies that have been floating around to contaminate our election, that is serious cause for concern. And so some sort of regulation needs to be put in place as it pertains to the amount of money that any one party or any one independent candidate can put before their constituents in terms of trying to influence the voting either way. So the regulating of the monies that flow during, before, and even after our elections. Jamaica is a perfect model of what we can do with the monies as per parties or individuals who put themselves up for elective office.
What exactly does Jamaica do in that regard?
Jamaica has a very structured system that has been working fairly well for them, in that certain monies are allocated from the coffers of the country, assigned to the parties or individuals. There is a check and balance situation that goes into this money. So it is not just a matter of getting monies and not being accountable. and it is as per your constituents. So, for example, if one constituent have 10,000 persons, then there is a limit, a cap that can be spent per voter, per constituent. And so those monies are given to the party or individual to do whatever spending. And those spending, there are checks and balances. So at the end of the exercise, there's this accounting that comes through so that the country now, the people now know exactly how this money was spent, when they were spent, if they were not spent. And so there is that sort of, balancing of the sheet, as it were.
But I was listening to a program, and one of the guests on the show said that there is a study that was done of one of the elections in Dominica, and the Labour Party spent $70 million on an election. Let us say Dominica has 70,000 people. You know how much money that is per person, and how much difference that could make in the lives of Dominicans if there was that regulation that you're talking about, and that money that would, instead of spending it on election, was spent for development of the country. So that is a very important issue: campaign finance regulation or control. What's your next item?
The next item in my mind would be the access to the media outlets in Dominica. Okay. A lot of time there's this unfair playing field that goes into any general election. And so the messaging of political parties, the messaging of individual or candidates who putting up themselves for office should be heard far and wide. And there should not be this unequalness in the playing field that a certain set of people alone can hear a certain set of people. No. All the media outlets in Dominica, especially the state-owned media, DBS Radio, that is a must. We cannot be looking down the road, futuristic that is, looking at our electoral politics in Dominica and have DBS closed up or shut up to other parties other than the government or the incumbent. No, we cannot continue to have that. That is certainly not free, and it is certainly not fair. DBS in particular needs to open up its doors to all and sundry in that regard once they are bona fide where the Electoral Commission is concerned as to taking part in the elections. All
right. So we had 7, or do we have one more?
We have one more, and which is very important as well, which is a hot button item for Dominicans now. We had a report, or we had some recommendations, even some draft legislations that, I'm hearing that needs to be consulted upon. But where I'm concerned, these things just needs to be trashed because it is not in our interest. And those recommendations are from Sir Dennis Byron. But having said that, Sir Dennis Byron basically told us in Dominica that the persons living overseas who are Dominicans and who want to continue to exercise that franchise in Dominica, then the Electoral Commission should set up 4, hear me Drago, not 10, but 4 selected cities they should choose from to set up enrollment centers, they call them, so that Dominicans who live in out of state, be they living in Timbuktu, be they living in Afghanistan, be they living in Australia or China, they should go to those 4 selected cities right there, Drago. To me, that is a non-starter.
That's
the same thing that we are trying to get rid of in terms of the disenfranchisement of persons. That is what Brother Byron is recommending.
But anyway, what's that? I said, why you said brother, and my mind simply went to why are we calling him brother? But every human is my brother, right?
Well, he's a Caribbean man first, eh? He's a Caribbean man, and remember, I stand for rights. So if his right is trampled upon, then I will be the first one to raise my voice in that regard. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what he has recommended thus far in terms of his recommendations, they are not suited for a purpose in Dominica. He's only singing or playing to the tune of the person who paid him, and that's it. And so I am recommending that anything and everything that have to do with elections should be done in this little rock or on this little rock.
I agree with you 100.
Registration, confirmation, getting your card, whatever it is in Dominica. If you are so interested in elections in your country, come back to your country of birth and do the necessaries. You can go back, but come back here for that process. And if you fall within the law, once you're out there, then you are welcome to come back. But that kind of thing about you outside there for 20, 30, 40 donkey years and want to step back in at the 11th and a half hour to contaminate an election in one way or the other, Drago, that cannot continue. And this to me are my 7 imperatives for electoral reform in Dominica. Anything short of that, we are not talking reformers yet.
I agree with you. I agree with you. What do you say to the folks who say that, well, things like fixed date and fixed term limits and those things require a constitutional amendment, and therefore it's too hard a hurdle to cross right now. Let's take a little bit now and improve it as we go along. What is your response to that argument?
How harder it is can it get when your country slides into dictatorship? When one man or one woman is at the political helm and they are basically having that iron fist on you, dictating your everyday, how harder can your country get? And so by we, the people coming together, if it means amending the constitution to suit our needs, then let it be. But
exactly,
that falsehood or that notion about it is too difficult to do in terms of amending the constitution, that shouldn't fly.
If like we say in Dominica, if I was close to you, I'd shake your big toe. I agree with you 100%. I mean, why would we go? Why would we go through all this trouble and then do a half cook? You cannot, and I just say that people who are advocating that, maybe they are dictators in waiting. They don't want.
Yeah, a matter of fact, Drago, from a health perspective, I'm no doctor, I'm no nurse, but I'm just saying you brought up a very good analogy here. Sometimes it is even better to eat food raw or uncooked than half cooked.
Half cooked, you cannot be half pregnant.
Because at the end of the day, it will mess you up more half cooked or half baked or whatever half it is than uncooked or fully cooked. So as I said before, if we are going to reform this system, let us do it in earnesty, let us do it from scratch, so that at the end of that exercise, we know that will serve us, serve our children, serve us in the future for a very long time. And we as a people would be proud to know that whatever is the end product, then we would be a very proud people by participating in that process to make our country a much safer and better country.
And Loftus, I agree with you, because everybody talks about doing those things, and when they get into power, somehow they don't seem to find the time or the opportunity to do it. And if we're going to go through the trauma that we're going through right now for almost 20 years, we have to make sure that when it's done right. And we don't have to go through that trauma anymore. So I agree with you. I'm going to go over them again. The items that you listed that are must-have for electoral reform: a voter ID card, not a national ID card, a voter ID card, a re-registration of electors, not a cleansing, not a confirmation, a re-registration of electors. Term limits, whatever a decision it is, it's for everybody, whether it's 3 terms, whether it's 2 terms, whether it's 3 terms of 5 years, 2 terms of 4 years, 3 terms of 4 years. Term limits, so that the person sitting in the chair know that no matter the outcome, they are going to expire in that chair. So there's a disincentive to try to stay in there forever. There is the incentive to perform so that you can leave a legacy. A fixed date for the election. It's madness that one person can just throw the country into turmoil because he get upset about something. Like Maya did it in Barbados. Some people within her government will start to agitate and ask for certain things, and she decided, I want to get rid of you. So she called an election. And of course, her good friend Roosevelt Skerritt did the same thing a few months later. So fixed dates for election, campaign finance regulation, access to media and resources, especially its own. What did I miss? I think I covered them. Did I miss one? No, I think I got them. And of course, especially in an environment where no many passports have been sold, and those who have the
audio, your audio is going and coming. I can hardly hear what you say now.
Yeah, I'm not. No, so I'm saying that especially in an environment where we have so many people who have bought our pass, it's crazy to think that they can just fly and vote. So Loftus, I agree with you about the items that you listed for term limits. All right. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, I'm hearing you a little better, yes.
So the other thing that I want to talk about, I know we've passed 9 o'clock, but we have another 15 minutes or so, is to talk about why electoral reform is such a hot is because we're seeing so much practices of corruption that is happening that we would like a chance to change the government. Can you talk about corruption in terms of the way the government is administering the affairs of the
I think you asked me about something about corruption, right? I'm not hearing you, Drago.
Yes, I did. I'm not sure what's happening in the internet. You'll have to talk about corruption.
Okay, basically, if I understood the question that you posed, corruption, what about the situation of corruption in Dominica? First and foremost, Drago, let me just be clear. Corruption is not a thing that persons can really see with the naked eye when it takes place. Corruption basically is this underhand dealing, this thing that helps one government or one organization or one whatever it is have this unfair aspect in terms of what they do, how they do to remain in a certain position for very, very long time. So when we're speaking about corruption, persons should not, go out there and really see if they can see any corrupt activities happening if it is not so blatant. These things are normally done in the dark. They're done on the tables. They're done, in very shady ways. In Dominica, it has been brought to attention, but that the government of the day have been involved in very corrupt activities. And if I go back all the way back in 2000 and something, 2005 or 2009, somewhere there, when certain ministers of this government basically had to pay back monies to the treasury of Dominica after it was found out that through some beans purchase, that the beans were overpriced, and those overpriced monies were as kickback or going back into certain politicians' pocket. So it's a factual thing that happened in Dominica. We have situations in Dominica where we are now deep and center into a housing revolution, or something called a housing revolution. A lot of persons who are in the housing industry, they say that is just a laundromat for washing dirty money. If you want to hide money, dirty money, the best place to hide it is in concrete, where the ordinary man or ordinary woman can figure it out. Because a lot of persons, once you put up a structure, you can just put any price on there, and most persons will tend to believe it. But persons who are in the know about construction, they tell you that, hey, that is one of the ways that the government of the day in Dominica, that is the Dominica Labour Party, I want to stress, they are hiding money and basically have money come back to them as kickbacks. We have also in Dominica untendered projects. We have untendered projects whereby companies come to Dominica, not even our locals, mind you. Companies come to Dominica and in a very willy-nilly fashion, they are given projects over our local people here in untendered ways.
Right.
And so that goes against our procurement laws or procurement regulations in the country. Right about now as we speak, it is said that a company from Barbados just was bestowed on them a contract to extend the Melville Airport, which is our main airport. We have people on ground in Dominica that can do that. We have an airport that is being supposedly built in the Wesley area. Again, the actor up there, this project was untendered. So, Drago, it is much too numerous to mention as to what happens here on a daily basis. The nepotism that goes on in the country, the level of victimization that goes on in the country, the level of crass partisan politics. A matter of fact, I am quoting her now, because when I'm quoting people, I also like to call their names, because I'm quoting them directly. Alex Boyd Knight, one Speaker of the House, said, if you are not red, meaning if you're not a labor right, you're better off dead. What does that mean, Drago? What does that mean in a struggling economy like Dominica?
So they're trying to prove it. They're trying to prove her right.
If that and more, these are not situations of very corrupt activities, I don't know what is. You have a Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit. He is now living in a house, a mansion that is, let me qualify that house, where the taxpayers of Dominica is paying 64, pretty close to 70,000 EC dollars for
month.
him and his family every month to live in a house. And a lot of people, Drago, believe that house, it is his house. A lot of persons believe that.
Yeah, because there are records in the public domain that showed who the owner of the land that the house is built on.
And not just that, Drago, not just that, you know. Under pressure, he gave his word to the Dominican public that he should have been out of that housing accommodation long, releasing the Dominican people of that kind of exorbitant bill. That money could go into health, that could go into agriculture, that could go into any other sector to help the Dominican people. But imagine, Roosevelt, his wife, and 2 children, and I guess whoever else is using up, it is said, we don't know that for a fact, $70,000 a month. Do you know what $70,000, Drago, is in a struggling income like Dominica?
It's more than the annual earnings of our nurses and our policemen, 2-3 of them put together.
Exactly.
For a year.
And so up to now,
we have a question.
He don't have the audacity to come back and tell the Dominican public why, just why he's still in that house.
There's a comment on the screen left us.
Sure.
As we're approaching the end, I want to just take some of those comments. Alvin is saying Dominica is the only country in the region that has not had electoral reform since the country's independence. And in a previous comment, he said that some islands have even had more than one bite at the apple. They try electoral reform and do a further improvement on electoral reform.
Antigua and Barbuda is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, yeah. Sam, if you can put up more of those questions from the audiences, let's put them up. Let's see if we can just. Didi Easter is saying, we do not need a national ID card. What we need is a voter ID card. The people must reject the proposal submitted by Skerrit. So a lot of agreement there, Loftus, on folks
Matter of
who
fact,
are
I want to
saying,
agree with Didi Easter in that way, the national ID way, in my mind, is a way of Roosevelt and his gang planning, plotting to steal future elections in Dominica, and we will have none of it.
Any more? Sam, can you put them up? Okay, so that is it. That's those that we have up for now. Loftus, you were talking about corruption, and I agree with you 100%. One of the biggest culprits is the lack of transparency. We don't know how contractors are selected for major projects. That is one. And so, as you said, I work in construction, and I worked in construction in Dominica. Construction, you have a lot of money. A lot of people do not understand corruption, and so construction, I mean, and so it's easy to hide money and to get kickbacks from construction all over the world. Construction is one of the industries where you have the most illegal activity. You have mafia, gangsters, all kind of bookmakers and so on, who use construction to cover up. Margot Larock is saying, I am with Drygo on the terms. 2 terms is enough time to get the job done. Loftus, what can we do as solutions? Who are the people? What are the actions that we can take to try to reel back in this rogue government and to try to get some kind of reform and eventually get them replaced?
Well, Drygo, first and foremost, I know sometimes when I speak, my words does not be going down too well with certain people, but
That's okay.
nonetheless,
That's what we
I
do
will
here.
speak my mind, like I always do.
Always.
First and foremost, Drygo, to reel that situation back in, as you said, there must be a concerted and conscious effort to be united. There has to be a coming together, amalgam among the opposition forces in Dominica. That is critical. Divided we fall, united we stand. That old saying is still true. And so what we have been having in the opposition circles in Dominica, it has not boded well for us to do anything about what we have been preaching, because we are much too disjointed. If you ask me, genuinely, consciously, I personally would recommend abandoning, dissolving of all the official opposition parties in Dominica. That is my recommendation.
And replace it with what? Independent candidates, or what would you replace it with?
No. Once, because what is happening in the Drygo with these quote unquote callers and political parties, persons are more sympathetic to their party and their color of their party before country. I am suggesting, in order for us to see a way forward, there's supposed to be a renewing of the mind in that regard. People, it is not parties, it's not color, it is country. And so by removing those stumbling blocks in the way by the colors and the parties, dissolving them, make them come to moot, as it were, then the people now will have no option, no choice, but to sort of realign their mind to a movement that can rescue this country. And obviously, that movement, it will now take on the shape and form of a political organization, which is much more united in effort, much more united in purpose. And like in the 70s, the CNS, we can see a way to rescue this country once and for all. And then once we have settled the country in that form, then we can now go back, whoever wants to go back, to form their little cuckoo and whatever it is. But I believe right about now, Drygo, there's supposed to be a disbanding of all political parties in the opposition, so that at least a oneness of mind, a oneness of purpose, a oneness of unity can be rationalized in our mind so that we can understand the way that we have to charter now to help salvage what is left of this Dominica. Drago, finally,
before you go,
brother.
Before you go.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, a lot of people believe in their mind that ballot or voting is going to remove this DLP, this well-entrenched DLP from office. In my mind, I say no.
Okay.
What is going to do the trick is the people coming together, united under a banner. And once that is obtained, then we can see, we'll be able to navigate our ways better. But that sort of misnomer we have in our mind that we're going to vote out that government, we have something else coming.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that, and you talk about CSN for people who do not know, is Committee for National Salvation, CNS.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a committee that was formed in 1979 when the strong opposition rose up against the government and bring them back in line. And you saying that something like that, even on a grander scale, is required right now at this time. There's one more comment I want us to, a question on there. TD Joseph is asking, in hindsight, do you think it was a mistake that the main opposition party did not participate in the recent general election?
It was not a mistake, Mr. Joseph. A matter of fact, we would have been in the very same situation. Because once a system is rigged against you, it is very little that you can do to overhaul or overcome that system. Roosevelt Skerrit had these things well planned out, like he normally do, in terms of rigging the elections way before any ballot is cast. So that misnomer that some persons have in their mind, that if the opposition had participated, they would maybe gotten 1 seat, 2 seats, or 3. No. Right now, presently, the opposition did not participate. 2 independent candidates went up. So there's a veneer of opposition in Dominica, which to me is not effective, but it is there. What else could have been the outcome if the official parties now in opposition had participated? They would maybe get what? 1 more seat, 2 more seats will make it 3 or 4. What would be the difference then and now? Nothing.
Yeah.
What we need to do is to overhaul the electoral system and do what we have to do in that united spirit and deal with a very brutal regime like Roosevelt Skerrit once and for all. Finally, Cambodia had their elections on Sunday. And before any votes were casted, this leader, Mr. Sen, I believe that's his name, he already was celebrating victory. And we saw it in December of 2019 sham election. Before the polls were closed, Melissa and her people were already celebrating in Roseau. I heard them beating tambals in Roseau. How can you know the outcome of a poll before the official results are given from the people who are counting the ballots? Man, we have been participating in a sham and nothing but a sham. And it's only the people that can rise to the occasion and deliver ourselves from that madness.
From that madness. Before you go, a member of the audience is asking you to comment on the recent development where the United Kingdom has imposed visa restriction on Dominicans. People carrying Dominican passport to enter the UK now have to apply for a visa for entry. Visa-free entry has been removed as one of the privileges we have to enter the UK. The audience is asking you to comment on that.
Well, it is a very unfortunate situation for the average Dominicans, or Dominicans by and large, to not be able to be exercising or going through or be beneficiaries, as it were, of just moving to the United Kingdom without that visa restriction. It is very unfortunate. But I must add to that, Brother Drago, that situation, the writing was on the wall for a very, very long time. There were numerous occasions that we in Dominica told the government of the day what they're doing with the citizenship program. It is not working. It is not good. Some persons in the region kept saying that. Ralph Gonzalez for one. And obviously, the United Kingdoms and other people who are thinking of taking that measure against Dominica, they have been talking, they have been writing, they have been warning. But obviously, when you're dealing with a regime that is unrelenting in their bad ways, when they are like Balaams in the Bible, no matter what, even if their death is before them, they are hell bent on achieving their goal. What do you expect? So we have a Balaam-like government in Dominica.
Yeah, they cannot stop eating. They are the trough eating, and it doesn't matter if it's poisonous or peppery. They have to continue eating. Yeah.
And so it is very sad that Dominicans now who are working hard, because back in Drago, a lot of Dominicans, for example, in the 60s, 70s, they'd call it what, the Windrush. Persons just went to England on those big ships, on those big boats, those geese boats, and made a life for themselves. And they have contributed and still contributing to the development of Dominica. So in these people twilight years now, to ask them to go against the grain and to be restricted to go back to a country that they have worked so hard, it is very unfortunate. But that came as a result of a leader not listening to the people. And as my granny said, those who don't hear, they will feel. And in that case, it is not only he alone that is feeling, the entire country is feeling.
When the rain falls, it falls on all of us. Lastly, I don't know if I can indulge you. I have a few areas that I wanted to touch on. We can just touch on it really quickly.
Yeah.
And you talk about human rights. We see the police in Dominica being used as the private enforcement for the Skerrit administration. And you see a few elderly people, a few people just walking on the street, and the police is there to harass them. On a Wednesday, there's the walkers. The police put barricades on Kennedy Avenue, prevent people to go up. And we've seen actual brutality. I saw a demonstration with some bus drivers, and one bus driver was trying to defend himself, and the police felt he could just take his gun and just shoot him. You know? And we haven't heard any investigation. And you in Dominica, you know better than me. I want you to talk a little bit about the police brutality and the infringement of human rights in that regard.
Well, Drago, what we're seeing with the police in Dominica, that is just a symptom of the creeping dictatorship that has entrenched itself over a number of years. Dominica doesn't have a military, so it's the police that the Labour Party, by its leader, must use to sort of keep the people in check. And that has been done in a very, very successful manner to a certain extent, in that whenever persons like myself and others go out to stand for our rights, then here comes the police to brutalize us in every way, shape, or form. A matter of fact, there's a case pending in the courts 5 years now, when we were tear gassed in a very illegal fashion at Macmillan's gas station in Roseau.
I remember that
case. It is still pending before the courts. You understand? And a number of other situations where Dominicans have basically been harassed. The home I'm speaking to you there tonight, Drago, in my home, police came here looking for guns, for shotguns, and had all the boots and the dirty whatever it is on my sofa and my bed, just turn up the place. You understand? Because why? I am talking for my rights. What did they get? Nothing. What came out of that? Nothing. And so
did you file charges? Did you do anything legal about that?
File charges in what system? in that system. Drago, sometimes you just have to cut your losses, because when you're in a system like that, what we are going through in Dominica, sometimes it doesn't worth the effort. I mean to say it was a collective, a group of people that were there. So I am willing as leader then to continue that matter in the court on behalf of the people. But for me, myself, and I, that's water under the bridge. Drago, I am ready any day now for these dictators and their henchmen to do whatever I have to do with my body. I'm ready, and I'm serious about it. That is how crucial it is in this country.
And so, as you talk about the courts, let's talk about the institutions that need to be that have been eroded and deteriorated. We have the Electoral Commission, we have the courts, we have all of the checks and balances that's supposed to make sure that things are running well. We have journalists who are compromised. We have lawyers. Some time ago, they created a group called, was it Concerned Citizen?
Concerned
Lawyer.
Something lawyers, yeah.
Yeah. I call them Unconcerned.
Committee of Concerned Lawyers, yeah.
Committee of Unconcerned Lawyers. Because there's too much stuff going on. We had nothing from the lawyers who are supposed to be the expert on the law. So I call them on Committee of Unconcerned Lawyers. The engineers that look at the atrocities that happen in terms of design. Just institutions, how this government has been able to coerce and weaken all of the institutions that are supposed to form part of a democracy. I don't know if you want to say anything on that, but that's something I had on my list for us to talk about. You also spoke about how the government procures things. They give out contracts without following the law that's put in place for competitive bids, and they give it to whoever from anywhere. And we just see projects happening. And also we see, because of that, we see people coming into the Dominica who don't follow the law, and they destroy our rivers. They do what they want to for our forests, and they just disregard the environment and the law. I'm putting a lot on the plate because we're running out of time, but any one of those things that you want to talk about, unemployment, especially among the youth, and inadequate health care, those things, if you can talk about them.
Again, Drago, I'll repeat to you that all what you mentioned there are basically symptoms. If you have
the fruits,
Yeah, if you have an ailment, you will see certain things either internally or externally. And so these are just the fruits of a creeping dictatorship. The unemployment, the poor health care. It's just come to Dominica, or put your ears close to Dominica, and you will hear the number of deaths that are occurring at our hospital, their lack of medication. So basically, it's like a total abdication of these guys' responsibilities from captain down to cook, in a nutshell. So we have known that for some time now, and in Dominica, I normally say it's only the fittest of the fit that can survive in this country. So from healthcare to poor education to lack of agriculture. Imagine Dominica is an agricultural-based country, Drago. You know your Castle Bruce people. You know your terrain. You know what you guys used to produce in Castle Bruce, for an example. Today, we are heavily investing monies in concrete. People need homes, yes, but at the end of the day, if people don't have food to eat, if they cannot sustain themselves, the home basically means nothing.
Exactly.
It means nothing. So it is just total neglect of the country, and the economy suffers as a result. Don't talk about the rate of inflation in Dominica. Tonight, I was talking to a young lady who was going through the grinds, and she said, Lofty, before I could buy a tin of sardine for $2.95, $2.50. Now that tin of sardine, Drago, it is $7 and change and counting.
For one tin of sardine.
One tin of sardine, one tin of tuna. That is the basics. We're talking about flour, rice, sugar, the basic commodities for people to live. No fancies. Today I saw a young lady post on Facebook sometime back that, some persons, they may buy some chicken and they will have that chicken in their freezer, pinching it, pinching it, pinching it. By the time they end the parcel by the time they end that package, the chicken itself would have lost its nutritional value. Because why? Ends just cannot meet. And you have a government touting about billions of dollars in an economy. That money, it doesn't trickle down. It doesn't reach the ordinary man. So something is wrong. And the only way we can rectify that wrong is by getting rid of that cancerous type of government. End of story.
End of story. So Loftus, I hope listeners heard what we said tonight. And we were not angry. We didn't shout. We didn't cast aspersions. We didn't make accusations. We laid the facts. And in fact, when I sent out the invite for folks to tune in, that's what I said. I said, you come with facts and you're also courageous and say it like it is. And so, folks, you've heard from the horse's mouth, from Loftus, who is on the ground in the belly of the beast, so to speak. And you hear him say, I am ready if they had what they're going to do with my body, because we know that he lives in a space where any kind of dissent is completely intolerable. They don't tolerate any kind of talk. As a matter of fact, if you are in the employment of the government service, you have to get the approval of that one man for you to go on media and talk. I remember after Hurricane Loftus, quick story, there was a relief center in the Windsor Park. And we contacted them to just do an interview with the person who was managing it, or one of the managers in there. So if that person was the actual top manager. And they agreed to come on TDN to just talk about the handing out of relief supplies and so on. And then a couple of hours before the show, the person said, I have to cancel because they tell me I didn't get the permission of the Prime Minister to come on the radio and talk. That is the kind of environment that we exist in. And when we talk about healthcare, you have someone who was in communication and works being the Minister of Health, because it doesn't matter how qualified the person is who is in that position. At the end of the day, it's only one person that's making the decision. So for all you care, you could put a robot in there, you could put a computer in there, because the resources of the people are not being used. Folks, one of the reasons why I invited Loftus to come on the program tonight is to ask you to look at yourself, because I know I have some supporters of the Roosevelt Skerrit administration who are part of my audience. And they say that they support government because it's labor and their labor rights. But really and truly, can you really genuinely say that Dominica and Dominicans are better off now than they were 20 years ago? And if you project your mind forward another 10 years, that they will be better off than they are right now, under an administration that has proven time and again that they don't have what it takes to run the affairs of the country. And do you believe in that religion called a party so much that you're willing to put your country and your fellow countrymen on a second-tier basis just so you can support a party and you can raise your hand and say that I belong to that particular party? You really have to do some soul searching and ask yourself, does that make sense? Does that identity that you have as a supporter of a party, does that sit well in your conscience? Does that sit well in your heart that you can continue to do that and disregard all of this suffering that we see around us? Loftus, I'm going to give you a chance to give some closing remarks. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, Brother Drago, what I want to say in terms of my closing comments here, I want to urge Dominicans that we are Dominicans for a reason. We are Dominicans for purpose. And it is up to all of us to look within ourselves to find out what is our true purpose. And if we are not living out that true purpose once found, then it is like we are like salt and have lost our saltiness. It was Frantz Fanon, this black freedom fighter, who once said, basically, and I paraphrase him now, he says, in each generation, one must find their self, find their purpose. And after finding that purpose, they can do two things with it. One, they can either betray it or they can be true to it. And the trajectory on which we have been on as a people, a lot of persons have not been true to that purpose that Frantz Fanon spoke of. So I am just here as one body, encouraging all Dominicans to let us find that true purpose within ourselves, to do what we have to do to help salvage what is left of our country. Our children's future is at stake. Our country's future is at stake. Our own existence presently is at stake. So if we think it was or it is bad for our future, think of ourselves now, because things are not going to get better. We have read that book. Well, I have read that book from cover to cover already, and it can only get worse in Dominica with this present Roosevelt Skerrit regime at the helm. This is not a government supposed to be working for its people, and it's supposed to get its power by the people. Roosevelt have not been getting his power by the people, and so that is why he has not been working for and on behalf of the people. So Dominicans, I really beseech us tonight, let us do what we have to do. Find it within ourselves to pull up our socks, as it were, gird our loins, and be prepared to do the toiling, be prepared to do the hard work to lift ourselves off that very comatose state that we have been for what, 23, 25 years now. And so, you know, we are right there knocking on the doors of other countries that we look upon and say, hey, these people, they survived that dictatorship for that long. Mugabe was in power for what, 38 years? This Cambodian man I spoke of, he had been in power for what, 40 years? We are right there, 25 years. And so if we don't do what we have to do, 3 electoral cycles, it is like a passing cloud. And let us not be the people who will regret and say, if I had known, I would have done better. It is better to act now than to be sorry later. So Drago, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for, the discussion tonight. I really appreciated the time spent with you, and I hope that my words did not fall on deaf ears tonight.
Doctor, thank you so much. And as I said, you're very courageous, and you are the one person, that one consistent, persistent voice that has been there and really championing the cause in one capacity after another. And Dominica thanks you and appreciates you for that. And folks, what you hear tonight is real. Recently, we've seen cases where people who see themselves as supporters of the government are being surprised that they're being treated exactly the same way as other people that they think deserve it because they're not supporters of the government. It's only going to get worse, as Loftus said. Imagine where you are going to create a Dominica where your children or your grandchildren are going to experience some of the brutality that you see happen to other people. Are you going to wait until then to wake up and say, man, how can they do that to me? And I do that to my child? How can they do that to my grandchild? And I'm a poto. I mean, do you really want to sit back and watch them destroy our rivers? And then we have an issue with finding drinking and potable water in Dominica. Are you seeing the videos of caterpillars and heavy equipment just willy-nilly going through the forest and destroying the rivers and just everything that is sacred? As a Dominican, what makes you a Dominican is nature. And if you say you are proud Dominican, therefore you're proud of nature, are you going to just stand there and just watch the desecration of river after river, mountain after mountain? When are you going to look at it and say, listen, this man, we thought he was somebody that was had the interest of Dominica had, but there's enough evidence to prove the other way. I'm going to leave you with these words. The forest looked at the axe, and because it was mostly made of wood, they thought it was part of them, and they trusted the axe. And the axe was used to cut down the trees that destroyed the forest. Not because somebody looks like us means that he or she is one of us or has our interest at heart. So, listeners, I hope you
Alvin,
really.
just before you go, Drago, let me just thank at least some persons who are on the live feed tonight. Two
Sure.
persons stood out in terms of their comments. Alvin Thomas, I know he's there. Alvin is a patriot of Dominica to the bone, living out, but he always there thinking about his country and want to do for his country. Margot LaRoque as well. She basically
She's
took the
always
prize
there.
tonight for commenting. Persons like Maslin Edwards and others,
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
there trying to do for
Didi
Dominica.
Easter. Yeah.
Yes, and all those. So, folks, I just want to thank you for being true to country, and united we stand, divided we fall. Let us be united as we continue to help salvage what is left of our country, because for sure it really needs us like now.
Definitely. And with that, I'll leave it right there. This is very good. Listeners, thank you for staying with us. We stayed extra, we stayed 2 hours, and you are still there with us. So we thank you for that. And Loftus, of course, I want to thank you so much for your time. And you came and you stayed for 2 hours.
That is past my bedtime.
Yeah. And but the folks appreciate it, Loftus, and we appreciate what you do. So thank you so much and good night.
All right, brother. Thank you very much.
All right. So listeners, there you have it. The photo of Beverly just flashed by there, and I remember her. But as I promised you, a very candid conversation with Mr. Loftus Durant. No stranger. He is on Civic Vibes on Civic Vibes Facebook page. He does a live every Sunday from 6 to 8, I think it is. You can find him. Just search for them on Civic Vibes, and you can see he brings that same energy and that same information and courage and candidness to that program. He also, I think, on a Tuesday or Thursday night, he does his own Facebook Live as well. So thank you, Brother Loftus. Thank you, listeners, for staying with us. Thank you to the crew who keep us live. I understand there was some technical difficulties where my image was freezing. Don't know what that is, but thanks for tolerating it and staying with us. Anyway, we do this next week, Wednesday. Those of you in the US that's going through this heat wave, stay cool. Go to the mall if you have to. Stay out of the sun as much as you can, and have a safe week, listeners. Good night.